My mother stood up in the middle of my sister's wedding reception, raised her champagne glass, and said, "From this day forward, Jason is no longer part of this family." My 12-year-old son was sitting right next to me when she said it. The entire ballroom went silent. My dad didn't stop her. My sister started crying. And every single relative at our table suddenly avoided looking at us. Jason looked up at me, completely confused, still holding the dinner roll he'd been eating, and whispered, "Mom, what did I do?" I honestly thought this had to be some kind of sick misunderstanding. Until my father stood up beside my mother and said, "You should have handled this before it got this far." That's when I realized this wasn't spontaneous. They had planned it. And just as I grabbed Jason's hand to leave, my sister suddenly said, "Rachel, maybe you should tell everyone what they found in Jason's backpack first." I turned around so fast, my chair nearly tipped over behind me. Vanessa was standing near the head table in her wedding dress, mascara already running down one side of her face. She looked terrified, even saying the words out loud. Not angry, not confident, scared. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Nobody answered immediately. Not my mother, not my father, not even my sister. The only sound in the ballroom was the low hum of the air conditioner and the clinking of someone nervously setting down a wine glass across the room. Then my mother folded her hands together and said, way too calmly, "Rachel, this doesn't need to become a scene. Jason made a serious mistake." Jason's face went white. He was 12. 12. He still slept with the hallway light on when thunderstorms hit the house. 2 hours earlier, he'd been excited because my father had finally shaken his hand when we arrived at the venue. Now every person in that ballroom was staring at him like he was dangerous. "What mistake?" I snapped. My father stepped forward before my mother could answer. "The missing envelope," he said. And right there, I felt this horrible drop in my stomach because suddenly I knew exactly what they were doing. A week earlier, during a wedding planning dinner at my parents' house, Vanessa had claimed an envelope containing cash wedding gifts had disappeared. Nearly $8,000. At the time, everyone searched the downstairs rooms while Jason stayed upstairs playing video games in my old bedroom. Then, almost an hour later, my mother claimed she found the envelope inside Jason's backpack near the coat closet. Except there was one thing nobody at this wedding knew. The envelope had been empty when they found it. I looked at Vanessa. "You told them Jason stole the money?" "No," she started, crying harder now. "I said I didn't know what to think." "But you let them do this?" I asked. Jason grabbed my sleeve tightly beside me. I could actually feel him shaking. That's when I noticed something else. Jason's name card was gone from the family table. Not fallen over, removed. My parents had decided this before we ever walked into that ballroom. And then my father looked directly at Jason and said, "You should tell everyone what you were doing in my office that afternoon." My father's voice had that cold, controlled tone he used whenever he wanted everyone else to feel small. The same tone he used when I got pregnant at 22. The same tone he used every holiday after that when he'd introduced Jason as Rachel's boy instead of his grandson. Now he was using it on a 12-year-old in the middle of a wedding reception. Jason stared at him, completely frozen. "I wasn't doing anything," he said quietly. A few guests exchanged looks. Somebody near the back whispered, "Oh my God." I could feel the room shifting against us by the second. My mother crossed her arms. "Jason, lying now will only make this worse." That did it. "Worse?" I said. "You just announced to 200 people that your grandson isn't family anymore." My mother's jaw tightened, but she didn't back down. A child doesn't accidentally end up with an envelope in his backpack. Jason looked up at me desperately. Mom, I swear I didn't put it there. I know, I said immediately. And I did know. That was the part making me sick. Jason wasn't a perfect kid. He forgot homework. He snuck candy before dinner. Once he lied about breaking a neighbor's window because he was scared. Normal 12-year-old stuff. But stealing thousands of dollars? No. A week ago, after the envelope was supposedly found, I kept asking my parents for details. They suddenly stopped answering my calls. My mother only texted once. We're handling this privately for Jason's sake. Now I realized what privately meant. They'd been preparing this humiliation the entire time. Vanessa suddenly spoke again, her voice shaky. The money wasn't actually in the envelope when we found it. The ballroom immediately erupted into confused murmurs. I turned toward her slowly. What? My father shot her a warning look. But it was too late. Vanessa swallowed hard and said the envelope was empty. Every eye in the room moved back to my parents, and for the first time all night, my father looked nervous. Then he said something that made the entire situation even worse. We chose not to involve the police because we didn't want to ruin Jason's future. You didn't call the police, I said slowly, because there was no money missing when you found the envelope. The room went dead quiet again. My father immediately stepped in. The cash was obviously removed before the envelope was planted. Planted? I repeated. You hear yourself, right? You're talking about a 12-year-old like he's some criminal mastermind. Jason was crying openly now, trying hard not to make noise. That somehow made it worse. He kept wiping his face with the sleeve of his suit jacket like he was embarrassed for everyone to see him upset. My mother looked at him with absolutely no softness. Jason needs to learn actions have consequences. I stared at her in disbelief. You still haven't said what he supposedly did. Vanessa suddenly spoke up again, voice trembling. Mom and Dad thought the family deserved to know before Jason got older and things escalated. Things escalated. Like my son was some future threat sitting at table 7 beside the wedding cake. A few relatives started openly arguing now. My cousin Leah stood up and said, "This is insane. He's a kid." But my father ignored everyone except me. "This is what happens when discipline is optional," he said. There it was. Not just blame toward Jason, toward me. My mother let out this sharp breath and said, "You spent his entire life protecting him from consequences, Rachel. Just like everyone protected you." I felt heat rush into my face instantly. Because suddenly we weren't talking about missing money anymore. We were talking about me getting pregnant young. About the years they spent treating me like the permanent embarrassment of the family. And then, in the middle of all that chaos, something clicked in my head. 3 days earlier, I'd stopped by my parents' house to drop off Vanessa's bridal shower photos. My father's office door had been partly open, and I remembered seeing bank withdrawal slips sticking out of his trash can. Large withdrawals, amounts close to the missing wedding money. I looked directly at my father, and before I could stop myself, I said, "Was the money ever actually stolen?" For the first time all night, my father didn't answer immediately. Then beside me, Jason spoke through tears. Grandpa told me not to tell anybody what I saw in his office. My father slammed his hand onto the table so hard the glasses rattled. That's enough. Nobody moved after my father shouted. Not the guests, not the wedding staff, not even the band playing near the dance floor. Jason flinched so hard beside me that I immediately pulled him closer. My father pointed toward the ballroom doors. "You and your son need to leave. Right now." But this time, nobody rushed to support him. In fact, several relatives started talking over each other at once. "Hold on, what did Jason just say? What office? Harold, what's going on?" My mother looked furious, that people were questioning them at all. I crouched down beside Jason so I was eye level with him. His face was red and blotchy from crying. Jason, I said carefully, tell me exactly what Grandpa meant. Jason looked terrified to answer. Then he glanced toward my father and whispered, he told me not to talk about it because adults were handling family problems. The room got even quieter somehow. What did you see? I asked. Jason swallowed hard. A bunch of cash on Grandpa's desk. And the envelope Vanessa was looking for. A sharp gasp came from somewhere behind us. My father immediately stepped forward. He's confused. No, he isn't, I snapped. Jason continued before anyone could stop him. I went into Grandpa's office because I was looking for the bathroom upstairs. He got really mad when he saw me there. I turned toward my father. You told everyone Jason confessed? Vanessa suddenly burst into tears again. He told me Jason admitted taking it, she said, pointing shakily at our father. Dad said Rachel convinced him to stay quiet so there wouldn't be police involvement. I felt physically sick hearing it out loud. He had lied to all of us separately. Around the ballroom, people started connecting things fast. My uncle muttered, I thought Harold lost money in those investments last year. Another relative added, Linda and Harold were fighting about finances at Christmas. My mother immediately cut in. None of that has anything to do with this. But now even she sounded panicked. Then Vanessa pulled out her phone with trembling hands. I just got access to the wedding account again, she whispered. She stared at the screen for several seconds before her expression completely changed. Dad, my father went pale. Vanessa slowly looked up at him. The money was transferred out of the account 2 days before the envelope disappeared. For a second, nobody in the ballroom said anything. My father just stood there staring at Vanessa's phone like if he stayed quiet long enough, the numbers would somehow change. Then Vanessa looked at me with tears streaming down her face and said, the transfer went into Dad's personal account. The entire room erupted. People started talking all at once. Chairs scraped across the floor. Someone near the dance floor actually said, you blamed a child for this? My mother immediately tried to regain control. Harold was moving the money temporarily, she said sharply. It was going to be replaced. Temporarily? Vanessa snapped. You told me Jason stole it. My father finally spoke, but now his calm act was gone. I was trying to protect this family. No, I said. You were protecting yourself. And deep down, I think everyone in that ballroom knew it was true. Over the next few minutes, the whole story came apart piece by piece. My father had lost a significant amount of money over the past year through bad investments. Vanessa didn't know because he handled most of the family finances. When wedding expenses started piling up, he secretly transferred money from the wedding gift account into his own account, planning to return it before anyone noticed. But then Vanessa realized the envelope was missing during the planning dinner. And instead of admitting what he'd done, my father saw an opportunity. Jason had been upstairs near his office that night. Jason already felt nervous around the family. Jason was young enough that people might believe he panicked and hid the cash. So my parents planted the empty envelope in his backpack. And tonight's announcement, that was supposed to make the accusation permanent. If they publicly cut Jason off first, nobody would question them later when the money never turned up. I looked at my mother in complete disbelief. You humiliated your own grandson to cover up stolen money? My mother's expression hardened instantly. We did what we had to do before this family was destroyed. I actually laughed when she said that, because the damage had already happened. Jason tugged lightly on my sleeve. His voice was small. So they knew I didn't do it? That question hit harder than anything else all night. I bent down beside him and said clearly, yes. They knew. My father looked away the second I said it. Vanessa started sobbing again, this time out of anger more than shock. You let me believe him, she said to our parents. You let me stand here and accuse him. Around us, relatives began openly taking sides, and for once, it wasn't my parents' side. My cousin Leah walked over and hugged Jason. My uncle told my father, you need help. Even the bride finally stepped in and told my parents they would not be included in family photos anymore. That seemed to break something in my mother. Not the lie, not what she did to Jason, the embarrassment. By the end of the night, people were leaving early. Conversation stopped whenever my parents walked past. My father sat alone near the head table, staring into an untouched glass of champagne while guests avoided him completely. And honestly, it was the first time in my life I'd ever seen him without control. An hour later, Jason and I finally walked out of the venue together. The parking lot was cold and almost empty by then. He stayed quiet while we walked to the car, still holding my hand tightly. Then he asked, do I still have a family? I looked back through the venue windows. Inside, I could see Vanessa surrounded by relatives comforting her. My parents were nowhere near anyone anymore. And that's when I realized something. For years, I'd been trying to earn my way back into a family that only loved people when they were useful, obedient, or easy to blame. I squeezed Jason's hand gently. The people who protect you when things get hard, I told him, those are your real family. He looked up at me for a second, then nodded. And for the first time all night, he stopped hiding behind me and walked beside me instead.